topic that I'm responding to is social media. The claim that my opponent made was that social media is detrimental to the user's health. And there's supporting claims where the constant usage of social media can become an addiction that's detrimental to the user's health. Social media enables a public platform for cyberbullying, an action that harms users' mental health, and that social media constant trends can physically harm users. My response to the first claim that social media addiction is not a concrete term is, the supporting claim was the constant usage of social media can become an addiction that's detrimental to the user's health, is that social media addiction is not a concrete term. Social media addiction is not something that is medically diagnosable. There are no reliable tests to identify this disorder. According to a group of doctors at a Kwangwon University in Seoul, Korea, previous studies on internet addiction have used inconsistent criteria, making any comparison across study findings meaningless. So because it is not medically diagnosable, data regarding studies on this condition are unreliable because the criteria used to define their addiction is not concrete. My second response to there's the claim that social media enables a public platform for cyberbullying, an action that harms users' mental health, is that the sources cited in this claim are unreliable. Both sources cited use self-reported data, which is unreliable, especially in the case of cyberbullying, where the definition of the term is abstract and it varies from person to person. One of the sources they used comes from McAfee.com, which is biased because it is a web security company that profits off you believing that the internet is like a dangerous place. My response to their third claim, social media constant trends can physically harm users, is that social media trends are the result of people's recklessness and crave for attention, not the cause of it. Social media trends do not appear from thin air. They exist because people will always invent ways for themselves to garner more attention in social settings. My opposition states that thousands of people willingly hurt themselves just to showcase it on social media, but this does not necessarily mean that social media is to blame for their need for attention. I guess that's it.
All right, organizationally, you did a good job at the beginning telling us what the proposition was, what the secondary claims are, and then you're labeling those things as you go through also pretty clearly so that's easy to follow what the arguments are. I appreciated that. The challenge on the first point has to do with the idea of addiction not being a concrete term, and therefore conclusions being drawn about it are going to be problematic. And I thought that you did a good job suggesting that there isn't a lack of consistency about what is medically diagnosable as an addiction. I'm not sure why a medical definition is required in order to address a sociological or psychological phenomena. We're not really talking so much about the notion that this is going to be treated clinically by doctors giving people shots, because it's not like you get an internet patch to help break you of your addiction to the internet. The notion that there are consequences to people who use the internet substantially, who neglect parts of their lives. I don't remember what all of the proof was that the advocate used on this particular point, but you basically don't address any of it because your sole argument is this counterclaim about the lack of adequacy of the definition. It's not a bad counterclaim, but I think by itself, it's not necessarily going to be sufficient to overcome that first point, especially if there's been a demonstrated impact on health. So as a press, I think it's reasonable. As a convincing argument, I think it needs to be supplemented with some additional analysis of the information that was being used by the advocate to support their first point. On the second point, I think you've got a good point here also. Again, it would be stronger if you could develop a little bit more, because this is basically an argument that says, well, which is the cause and which is the effect? The advocate saying that the social media is causing people to engage in all these crazy sorts of behaviors that are that was the next point on the trends. Well, let's just talk about that third point. And stick with what I was saying. That's a cause-effect issue, and you're saying, in essence, it's not the social media that's causing that, it's all the crazy people who are then using social media to get it out. And I think that's a reasonable challenge. If you could, for example, show that those kinds of things existed prior to social media, that they don't occur any more frequently now than they did, or that they're relatively benign, that might also be a way to diminish that argument. I'm not sure that some of those social trends are all that problematic. I know that some idiot planked themselves off the edge of a building. That's a pretty dumb thing to do, but the truth is that people have been doing dumb things for a long time before social media came along. Playing chicken with their cars, cramming themselves into phone booths and smothering somebody by accident, swallowing goldfish. That all occurred 50, 60 years ago, and there wasn't any social media as we know it then, so why has this made it more prevalent or more significant? I like the idea, like you said, on that last point, that it's really a causality point. And then on the second point, your challenge is, again, a definitional kind of question. What constitutes cyberbullying? I think you need to give us an explanation about that. I think a lot of people would say, well, wait, cyberbullying, I know what that is, but if somebody just gives you a thumbs down on your post, is that cyberbullying? If somebody calls you a name, is that cyberbullying? If they stalk you and attack you on every site that you visit and print information about you that is not true, that's cyberbullying. Is it all the same? It's all kind of in the same category. So I think you've got a good argument here, but you don't develop it very well, so it's not necessarily going to be convincing to people. And so you need evidence on those individual points. A presentation is a little problematic. You want to look up at us and deliver your argument. You're just doing a lot of reading here, and I think the points that you've got are okay, but they don't necessarily require that you read the whole time. Look at us and explain to us what those points are, and I think you'll be a lot more convincing then. All right, thank you.